today what we thought we would do, we've been having a think here at DIA, and what we thought we would do is to have a look at a way of showing that a driving school business, it could be a riding school version as well, so we're looking at riders too, but to start out with this one, to sort of show your customers that you are in fact being COVID compliant. You've heard of COVID safe working environments and things like that. So, you know, we're choosing the word compliance. So you are doing everything that you possibly can to minimize the risk to your customers, to yourselves, to the households, to anyone, to DVSA staff, examiners, or anyone that might get in or out of your vehicle. So that's what we've been thinking about. And so what we've done is put a few things together. We've going to utilize some of the really great materials from our post-lockdown toolkit as well, because most of that is absolutely still valid, and I imagine a few of you on here today have been through that and done it. Some of you may not have done. So what we'll do is take a little snapshot of some of the bits to share with you, and we'll just work through it. So I would at the end, you know, just give us your feedback. Ask a question if you want to, no problem. And just sort of, is this, you know, I kind of want to maybe use this as like a little test group really with you guys to sort of think, is this the type of thing that you think would be useful to show that your customers and your, you know, and your existing customers, any new customers that you're trying to attract, that you are being safe? Because obviously people haven't come back to work. That's trainers, and that's there's still some that are choosing to stay away. There will be pupils, and you've probably got some yourself that haven't come back yet because they're a bit worried about things, or they've got somebody in themselves or someone in the household that are particularly vulnerable. So so obviously for those guys, yeah, the risk is higher, so they need to do what they need to do. But for people who are just kind of thinking, you know, I'm still not entirely sure about getting in a car that close proximity with someone, obviously they're right to be a little bit concerned, because we all are, but it's a way of just showing that you, as that trainer, as that business owner or franchise owner, you are doing everything that you can to ensure someone's safety and whilst they're with you. So let's have a little look at what we've got. So COVID Compliance Marque, or COVID Compliance, what is it for and why do it? So we've kind of gone over a few things. But it's important that as trainers, you've got procedures in place, you've got control measures and policies in place when delivering training. When I mean control measures, when I say control measures, what I'm meaning is we would have things like, you know, your PPE, so gloves if they prefer to use them, your face masks, your coverings, your hand sanitizers, and all that stuff, you know, whether you use seat covers or, you know, those types of measures to help reduce the risk. So we have those control measures in place. So it's important to have them in place, very important, when training at this time. And it's a good idea to be able to demonstrate and to show your new and existing pupils that you have these measures in place to reduce that risk. So obviously for your existing customers and pupils that have come back, and you know, they can see what you're doing, and they're obviously happy to continue learning with you because, you know, they can see what you're doing. But for those, you know, that are a little bit on the fence, not entirely sure, a bit of a worried parent or something like that, so this is sort of ideally going to hopefully address that issue. So by following your policies and procedures, and also keeping them up to date, very important, so review them regularly, plus also importantly keeping accurate records. It shows that you're doing everything you can for your customers' safety plus your own. When I say accurate records, it's like check sheets, check you've done this, check that, you know, cleaning regime, you've done this daily thing after every lesson, you've done a weekly deep clean. And so we will be we've upped and adapted the measures that we had, or the sheets that we had in the toolkit, and ramped them up a little bit to make them a bit more explicit over what bits, what high touch points in the car or any touch points need to be cleaned as well. So, and put sort of, you know, dates and times and things next to them. So if anyone said, you know, I don't believe that they're doing the cleaning, and, you know, you can show that, look, I've done that, this is the date, this is the time, and they could probably match it up to the pupil that you had on that day. So that's the sort of thinking behind it. Obviously, by having something to show your customers, it hopefully will give them a certain level of reassurance that you're operating as safely as you can and you're not taking risks, you're not flouting the rules. We are looking to develop a little logo for trainers to use on the website and any marketing materials to show that you are being compliant with COVID and you have followed the necessary guidance for the industry as well. So this covers, we're looking at the whole COVID compliance, covering the infection control safe protocols for driver and rider trainers. That was part of the post-lockdown toolkit and still is. So that is still valid, that's still in there. But we're looking at saying to you guys, look, make sure you've gone through that at least once, or you review it on a regular basis to see if there's any updates, and that you haven't missed anything. Understanding of the risks that are brought into the training vehicle. So I'll show you a diagram in a little while, and Howard can probably talk through that a little bit more because he put it together. So he can say, you know, this is a way of how cross-contamination can work. Your cleaning regime checklist, which I've pointed out. The ADI lesson guidance checklist as well. So have you, as the ADI trainer, done this, pre, during, post lessons, etc. And pupil guidance for starting, resuming lessons. That again was pupil guidance was part of the toolkit, still is. But again, we've just made a couple of updates to that, which will be available in the toolkit and also for this as well. In addition to this, it's really important that you have the necessary policies for your business as well. So things like your business terms and conditions, things like your privacy policies. Also, in addition, things like, you know, your refunds, your complaints, all of the general run-of-the-mill, how, you know, when you're operating a business, those things should be in place. But in addition, we're talking also things like a health and safety policy. So we will, when we launch this, we will go through and show you, from taking advice from the health and safety executive, how to put your own health and safety policy together. We can help talk through that, but again, every business runs, you know, in a slightly different way. So there isn't a one size fits all with it. So it'll be a case of you having to kind of go through that. But we can have a little look at helping you out with that if need be. We will ask you a few questions just to make sure that you've got the key points down with the COVID compliance. So that's fair enough. And also we'll make sure that you are keeping up to date. So we will ask you to, you know, regularly review your policies, your procedures, in line with the guidance from the chief medical officers, you know, government, and, you know, from DVSA, from us, as well as DIA and as NASP as well. So the infection control and safe training protocols. So what you will need to do is complete this course if you haven't already done so. If you have already done it, just make sure you revisit the updated information if you have already completed it, and just go back and look at it regularly. It's just good practice, because, you know, obviously the more time goes on, the more we can think, you know, you go back, and sometimes we all need to look at the basics on certain things as well, you know. So just make sure that you go back and look at that from time to time and work through that. So this slide here was just a few like little screenshots from that course I was just referring to. So it is in 4 parts. So module 1 is understanding coronavirus, COVID-19. Number 2 is infection prevention and control. So that is broken down into various parts. So there is the trainer, the pupil, the ADI, that is broken down into other parts as well. Module 3, safe protocols for driver and rider training. And module 4 is risk assessment. So again, have a little look on there if you haven't for a while. With the essentials, you know, as you've returned to work, and as other trainers steadily think about returning to work still, as we've mentioned, you know, need to make sure you've got the necessary things in place to make sure your business is operating in the safest way you can. And so we've provided some guidance for trainers to ensure, you know, what type of policies you should have in place. And if you haven't got them already, you know, this is how you can put them in place. If these are in place already, again, like I've said, make sure they are reviewed on a regular basis. So if you've got a health and safety policy, for example, then put a date on it, and say when it was last checked and when you're going to check it again. You know, it could be a monthly thing, or every other month, or, you know, there isn't a set time. It could even be a few months' time. But with the current you know, the conditions with COVID and how things are changing with that, the guidance changes all the time, you know, travel corridors and, you know, exemptions lists and things like that for traveling from high risk areas. It travels a lot. So, you know, just you might need to review that a little bit more regularly. So by working through all these things that we're suggesting that you do, if you don't already, you're going to be demonstrating that you're up to date, maintaining the current guidance, and you're operating your business safely as you can, providing new and existing customers with a certain level of reassurance to begin or to resume back with their training. So that's the whole idea behind it. And we're going to develop some sort of logo that you can use on your website and marketing materials as well. So how do I stay COVID compliant? So again, reviewing regularly, put them in place if you don't have them already. Stay informed with us and industry updates as well from DVSA. Make sure you're getting the DVSA direct emails. I send them out quite often now. And ensure that you're up to date with the, as I say, latest guidance in general. So we may ask you, we may say, you know, put a webinar on specifically for this, or ask you to complete a short quiz just to make sure, you know, you are up to date with any new information and things like that. So, and again, always ask us if you're unsure or need clarification on anything. So this is where I'm going to ask Howard to explain the next diagram a little bit more. So again, a training vehicle is used by many people, so we need to make sure we've got these control measures in place to help minimise the risk of contamination for everyone where possible. The following diagram will illustrate, you know, the contamination of a sterile training vehicle and how that can take place, and it shows how the virus could be introduced and transmitted onto other places, such as their home, workplace, supermarket, etc. So I'm going to bring up the next slide with your diagram, Howard, and are you able to have a little talk through it?
To me, that's fine. You can bring that up.
There you are.
What I'm looking at here now really is a situation. We know that we have people from all walks and backgrounds that get into our vehicles, and this is why, with the communication, we are contacting the students, or should be contacting the students. If we're not contacting them 24 hours before, we should be, to make sure they're okay. And then also contacting them on the day of the lesson to ensure that you're not making a wasted journey, because that wasted journey, if people are unwell, once they've got into the car, they contaminate what we call the reservoir. So your vehicle is actually a reservoir of hopefully cleanliness. So the information we've given out so far in the toolkit is that you are deep cleaning the vehicle at least once a week, and you are doing it, not a valeting company, because you have got, you know where you've been, and when you get into your vehicle, you know what influences and inferences there are going into that vehicle with you washing it down. If you get a valeting company to do it, no disrespect, but a lot of these companies use Eastern European guys. They get 4 or 5 of them in the vehicle at the same time. They clean it up as quick as they can inside and outside, but you don't know anything about them. You don't know their backgrounds, who they've come into contact with, or if indeed they are actually carrying the virus or any virus. So we have to try and make sure to limit the risk and mitigate risks, as it were, that we do the cleaning on the vehicle. And the toolkit actually does say what the deep clean is supposed to be. We also, I believe, have something in what we're actually doing with our compliance for this, the Marque. We have information in there on what the deep clean should be. So it's going to be using bleach-free disinfectant to wipe down all the surfaces that can be wiped down, hoover the vehicle as well. When we say about wiping down, we're also talking about cleaning out things like glove box, all the pockets in the car, the seat pockets, anything it can contain anything, and the contents. So if you've got maps in behind your seat, Yes, take the maps out, give them a wipe, but wipe the pocket down in the back of the seat if the surface allows you to, in order to give the place a deep clean. It includes the boots, it includes all door handles, everything is touchable from all parts of the vehicle. So you get that starting block every week where the vehicle is as clean as you can reasonably do. Now, we're talking about health and safety policies earlier on, and one big thing that the courts always come back to is when they make decisions is what is being done, is it reasonably practicable for the environment? Now, the environment obviously is your vehicle, but it's also, when they talk about environment, they're talking about the work ethic of your company. It's not just a physical room or a physical area. It's the whole ethos, holistic, of how you run your business when they talk about reasonably practicable. And this is why Olivia is mentioning about keeping documents and being able to mark down and report, record, etc. what
Evidence.
you've done. So you need to have records of everything that you are doing with this. So looking at this diagram now, what we're trying to do is, if you look at the left-hand side, we're talking the ADI, the box there, the rectangle, there's basically the car. Wasn't going to draw the inside of a car because someone's going to say, I did a lot on my car, so let's just have a rectangle there. On the left-hand side, well, the ADI tends to train from the passenger seat. The pupil tends to train from the driver's seat. So we've got the risks there of the ADI. Is the ADI shielding? Is it an ADI who's medically vulnerable? They're in an age group or a medical environment, a medical condition where they are medically vulnerable. Do you have people in your family or partners that work in COVID settings or near COVID settings? Or is it someone that has no issues? So there's a risk rating on that side of the car straight away before you even get in. And we're going back to the risk rating that we did on the matrix of, we have to weigh up where the risk is from the starting block of the ADI and who they are going to be training in that car, who's getting in through the other door. So this phoning thing that we've got to do, of phoning 24 hours before, or make sure you phone the student if it's the first time you're going to meet them, you have a conversation and you have to talk to them about where they have been and what they do, and because you need to ascertain the risk of what they are going to be, how they're going to contaminate that reservoir of your vehicle. Because it's not just them getting in it, there's going to be you getting in it, your family, and other people who you are training as well. So that it's going to dilute that deep cleaning regime. Yes, we're going to keep doing antiseptic wipes and using hand gel, etc. So we've got to look at the people getting in from the other side. Have they been abroad? Now, we've got a lot of travel corridors that have been broken. So there's a lot of isolation going on. Do they live alone? Do they work with close hand-eye contact? Are they in very close contact, like people who do eyesight tests, etc., who have to get very close to you, check your eyes? They can't keep social distancing. Or again, is it someone with no issues? So if you've got an AGI who is shielding, but they're taking on someone who has no issues, then there's very little risk of the pupil with no issues to the AGI who's shielding. So that's okay. That's yes, you can train mitigating circumstances of ensuring that the person coming into the car is going to have clean hands just before they get in the car. Yes, we really suggest that you wear masks if possible, unless there's a clinical reason why they can't be worn or they can't be taken off or put on. And also that the vehicle is sanitized once the driving instructor has arrived at the point of collection, that it's sanitized again because basically the driver is changing with another driver. So the sanitization process needs to take place at the change of every single driver, whether you're doing a demonstration drive, for example. Once you've done that demonstration, before you do the demonstration drive, wipe down everything. When you've done a demonstration drive, wipe down everything, but ensure that all of the materials used for wipe down are put into a bag, and that bag is disposed of responsibly. It must be sealed too. So we've got looking at all the little symbols in the car. Once we start working through the day, the vehicle obviously becomes a little bit more contaminated. This is why we've got to have the windows down. Yes, we can have the air vents on, but we mustn't have it on recycled air. We need air coming in that can get back out again and keep the vehicle as fresh as possible. So we start with a clean environment, we interchange the risk with the people getting in, which contaminates the reservoir, and the contamination gets worse and worse during the course of the day. So we do need to limit the amount of lessons we do if we can, or if you're someone who used to do 2-hour sessions, you may want to consider reducing the amount of time you have exposure to that person and reduce that lesson time. If you do sessions that are more than an hour, or even if they are an hour, you should be building breaks in to that session. So if you've got to discuss a learning point, that you do it outside the vehicle, weather permitting, of course. Social distancing must be in place as well. That way, you get the car aired and you can got a chance to wipe the vehicle down again when you get back in. So you're trying to upkeep the cleanliness as close to that deep clean at all points of the week as you possibly can. Very difficult to do, I know. You may have to do a deep clean more than once if you do, depending on how many lessons you do. But if this whole situation here is a big risk factor. The outside environment can affect your training environment, and your training environment can affect the home environment. You must remember that once your session of training is done, that reservoir is now on the people that are leaving your vehicle, and they're taking that to their home. Now, the reason we're getting all this done, and we want you to be quite intrinsic with this, is because there's going to be a time when someone's going to come back to you and say, or come back to an ADI and say, and we've had this already, I think you gave me COVID-19. Well, first of all, the courts are going to say, right, this must be proven beyond reasonable doubt that the driving instructor or the driving instruction environment was the cause of that. Now, you've got to remember, these people usually with you an hour, probably 2 hours a week. What are they doing for the other so many hundreds of hours or hour in a week when they're not with you? So why should they suddenly say it's the driving school car that's done it? One thing that's going to protect you is to have a track record. It's for you to be able to have a audit trail of what cleaning you've done, when you did it, what day you did it, what it was. And then every single day, when you've done the checks on the vehicle, you do the daily checks for roadworthiness, obviously your flattery checks. You do all the checks of wipe down before you get in the vehicle to move off. When you've done your phone calls, you mark down when you've done your phone calls as well. And when you get to the client, you have the chat with them outside the vehicle to say what the learning objectives are, so you can reinforce those from the phone call you had. When they get in and they get the seat organized, but everything's all wiped down for them beforehand. And all this is logged down and a date and the time is put down. We've got the forms in this compliance mark for you to use to do this, so that if anything untoward happens and someone says, I think I might have caught it from you, and they try to get stupid and litigious, whatever you call it, they're trying to sue you, then you have got the track record to go to whoever, solicitor, court, everything else, and say, right, there's my track record. Now, the thing is, this can be a very good marketing tool for you as well, because if you do this and you do this properly, every time you get a new person phone you up and you have to make contact with the parents or everything else, you can send the evidence that you've done this, and it can be seen by the person that that this is not just a fad to try to impress them. This is actually a routine that you've got. Your business now does this routine. And if you do things routinely, you do them automatically. And that's where you want to be. Unconscious competence. This is where you want to be with this now, is this situation of getting this thing, keeping this place clean, has have an unconscious competence about doing it where you don't have to think about it, and that will shine through. Anybody who you meet for the first time, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. You never do. And I've got to say this, the women, they tend to be able to note the personality of anybody, whether it's a woman or a bloke, and within about 8 or 9 seconds of the first time they set eyes on you. A guy takes about 23, 25 seconds to do it. A female will take about 7 to 8 seconds to do it. So you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And they're not looking at you, they're looking about your body language to show how confident and competent you are at what you are saying and the information you're trying to give them. And it even comes through on a phone as well. So if you're doing this regime all the time, you're in a situation where you are doing this second nature, then people will start to feel safe and you can market that. But you have this all in the background in an audit. You can put it all onto online. It hasn't got to be loads of bits of paper because we are sending these things out where you can download them or you can do them digitally. So you can keep them digitally if you need to, but they are there to be used as evidence to safeguard you. That's just why we're doing this now. So if there are any questions on this, I know we've still got a few more slides to go. Any questions on this, we need you to put them in the question box on Zoho, okay? Don't put them in the chats because we don't see them, but put them in the question box and then we can answer those questions for you now, between now and the end of this webinar.
So Steve has asked, why are shorter lessons with fewer people better than short sessions with multiple people?
Well, the thing is, it's the contamination of the reservoir. If you've got lots of people getting into the vehicle, you're doing short sessions with lots of people, you're contaminating the reservoir. That's the problem you've got. So you need to do, it's the contamination, it's the exposure to the person, because you can't guarantee that what they tell you on the phone when they say to you, I haven't been away, you can't guarantee they haven't been away if you haven't met them, you only meet them for the first time. So there's a little bit of trust you've got to build up with these people. So when you do your first initial phone call with them, you say, look, I'm going to have clarity. I'm going to have honesty from you because we are going to be using my vehicle as a working environment for not just you, but the other clients I've got as well. And we've got to help protect each other. So we've got to work as a team. And that's the sort of ethos you're going to have with these people. So if you're going to have lots of people in that vehicle, you're going to make that job a lot harder for yourself because you're going to contaminate the reservoir a lot easier. You'll have to do a lot more deep cleans in a week.
Okay, right. So looking at the next slide, so the cleaning regime, where we're near the end of the slides actually for today, but cleaning your car frequently obviously is absolutely essential to minimise risk of transmission of coronavirus. And so the control and that clean, is one of the control measures that we've talked about and Howard has explained. So we're going over old ground. We're just reiterating what Howard has been saying and what most of us know. But it's good to just go over this again and clarify that again. Yes, this does still need to keep happening. All this does need to be upheld still. And don't forget, by keeping the risk in that car and that reservoir, that training environment as low as possible, and it means that the risk to you and your pupils is lower, and it also means that you're probably more able to continue delivering your training and not having to take time off to self-isolate and things. So there is a number of things that you can do, and I imagine you're all doing all of those, or in some degree or another. But as we're saying, it is important to continue doing them if you're already doing them, and if you're not, then you need to just go through this through our information.
The other thing we can say here as well is that you go to test with your car, and the examiners in the standard operating procedures say they have to be able to see that the vehicle is clean. Well, you're going to be, say you go to the last test of the day and you've done five lessons in the car and you're going for a test. That car's not going to be crystal clean with dirt on the floor, etc. So if you've got the cleaning regime stuff there with you, you can say, have a quick look at this. This just shows I've got a routine of keeping the vehicle clean, and your student is going to verify that as well. That examiner should get in the car and take that test out. We've had a couple of situations where tests haven't gone ahead with the examiner. We've had reports the examiner didn't want to take the vehicle out, but again, the ADI could not prove that the vehicle had been cleaned. They couldn't prove it. This is going to give you a lot of credence to say, look, there's my regime of running my business now. I have got this. I am using this. This vehicle has been cleaned. It's been cleaned at this time today, this time today, this time today, this time today, and you can show the examiner. You don't have to show the examiner any names and details of anybody you've had in the car, but at least you can show the times and dates of when this vehicle was done. So the examiner can say, oh, well done, okay, good. And it puts them at ease as well.
I'm sure anyone with a real reason to dig into this would be able to then cross-check that with any diary bookings that you have to say, right, on Friday at 11 o'clock, you had this pupil for an hour, and then you had another pupil for an hour at 1:30, and then at 2:30, that type of thing. And it sort of cross-references with all the cleaning dates and times on there as well. As Howard said, you don't need to put your pupil names and stuff because that could be a data risk. So, you minimize that, just keep that in your diary, operate that as you do. But you can just put dates, times on there. So anyone that wanted to cross check, they could do. Okay, so again, you may have a good cleaning regime in place already, as we said. So compare yours with ours, make sure, and any amendments where necessary. So you've got all bases covered. So that's it. I mean, what we kind of, like your feedback on is this the type of thing that you think would be useful? We're updating the toolkit to make sure it stays up to date. As we were saying earlier, we practice what we're preaching as well about keeping things up to date once you've created them. But also, having some kind of a compliance mark or some sort of logo, something that you can show or highlight to your pupils, customers, new and existing, that, do you think this type of thing would be useful? That's what we're interested in from you today. So that'd be great to hear your feedback on that. So in the meantime, is there anything else that you wanted to add on to that, Howard?
No, I'm just looking in the questions and I'm not getting anything in the questions. Is it actually working, or is mine not working at all?
There are some questions. We've answered Steve's about the.
So I'm not showing any questions at all in the question portal. I can't see anything there at all.
Yeah, so Pat's asked, can we, all good guys, can you just remind me where I can find things like the cleaning regime on your website? So when you go to our website, driving.org, which is different to DIA Academy. So go to the DIA website, driving.org, log in, and then you'll see toolkit, DIA post-lockdown toolkit, and it's in there. There is some stuff in there already, but what we're doing is taking that and sort of developing it a step further. So this isn't quite ready yet, but we wanted to kind of, almost use you as a little focus group really to see if this is the type of thing that you think might be good.
But there is a version they can use at the moment.
There is stuff on there which was in the original toolkit that you can use now. Yep. But as I say, we're just developing that a tiny little bit further with this. So Susan's asked, will the cleaning regime template be downloadable? Yes, we're looking for you to be able to download that. So you would have a weekly one that you can do. I don't know whether we will be able to have this digitally. I'm not sure, but you can certainly download it. I understand about keeping paper, handout stuff, but if it's just you and you are keeping a record of it, that's low risk. You're not sharing it with people, so that's fine. And you could also, maybe you can get a picture of it or scan it or do something like that if you've got the means to do that, if you wanted to keep a digital backup or a digital copy of it. But we're looking at for you to download like the daily one, and then there will be sort of boxes where you can say, right, this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, I did this, I did this, I did this. So the cleaning regime in the toolkit, you can't see the cleaning regime in the toolkit, Pat. Is it a PDF? I think so. I'm just asking Tom. He's going to have a little double check that for you. In the meantime, let me just go on to the following slide while we find that one. Any questions? So we're kind of on that part of the session. So put your questions in there if you need to. Just to give you some academy updates, we've got some new dates for the level 3 FAA accredited online safeguarding course. So we've got some new dates for November. And what we would like to do, we are going to soon also be launching our equality and diversity course, which is a DIA course, all about that. And there'll be a little Zoom session in there as well. And what we're going to do is for, the first handful of people, probably up to about 5 people that book onto the safeguarding course, we were going to say you can have the access to the equality and diversity one for free. So once that's on there, so you can purchase if you wanted to get your safeguarding knowledge up to date and have that nationally accredited qualification that you can do from November with us, and it will last for 3 weeks. So you can do that. Also, we're doing our popular Apply Coach Approach course. We used to come and run it in the classroom all over the country, and we're also now developing that for an online version, so you'll be able to do that as well. All these courses will generally have a Zoom session in there, so you can have some sort of tutor support and group chats and things like that, because we know that's quite helpful for you. And also, if you've got any feedback, what would you like a webinar on? We're doing our weekly webinars still. Is there anything in particular that either we haven't covered or you'd like us to cover again? So that would be, really useful for us as well. So have a little think on that. If there's anything else that is interesting for you, that would be good. Just asking Tom 1 second.
The cleaning regime is in the infection control course.
Right. Okay. So the cleaning regime is in the infection control safe training protocols course. So that's where that is. So you would need to go through that anyway if you haven't done already, or if you have gone through it, as I say, make sure you go through it again. We'll be making launching a couple of updates. It was just a couple of the links that we're updating, but generally the information on there is still valid. We've been through it recently. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Will we be doing a webinar on GDPR data protection? We could do. If there's anything specific, Phil, we can certainly put something together. Whether we would do that or we would, it depends on how in depth you want to go. Whether we would ask maybe an expert speaker to join, or whether it's something that we would do. If there's anything specific that you would like on that, then you could always just drop an email to training@driving.org. If there's anything that you think actually this will be good, and that goes for everyone. If there's anything that you'd like and we're not doing, we'd like us to do again, just drop us an email to training@driving.org, and then we can come back to you on that. That'd be great. Okay, so I think that's all the questions done so far for today. So thank you for your attendance as always. It's a little bit of a shorter session today, but we'd love to hear your ideas and suggestions and feedback on this COVID compliance mark. You again, just drop us an email to training@driving.org, and have a little think about that. Is that sort of thing that you think will be helpful? And also, if you have any future ideas, I'm liking the GDPR one, Phil, that's great. If you could just drop us an email with any sort of, anything specific, any sort of angle on that, or any issues that you might have had, to help us to sort of form that, so it'd be helpful for you and others as well. That'd be really great.
We're also trying to plan a webinar for LGV. So if there's anybody out there who's LGV training or working closely with LGV, for example, CPC training, etc., and you've got any questions and you want to send those in, because we may not be able to do that as a live one on a Friday like this, as you may have to do it recorded. So if you have any questions about training on LGV, especially if you are an LGV trainer, in view that the driving licensing, so the driver's hours have now changed slightly, and you want to know about that, then if you want to drop a question into support@driving.org, I can pick that up and I can store that. And then when we get the webinar going, if we have to do it as a recorded one as opposed to a live one, then I've got questions to put to the guys that we hope to be doing this with. It's a big organization that we hope to be doing this webinar with. We're not sure, it's going to be towards the end of September now, but we're hoping to get this together, and I need questions for it. So if you have any, then please send them through.
Okay, thank you very much. Okie dokie, so we're going to probably wrap up this session, but just to say, keeping up to date for those of you who've joined us today, if you haven't been on the last sort of couple or few webinars, really important, have a little look at some of those. They're in the DIA Academy.co.uk website, which is different to the driving.org, so we got two, and have a little look at those. They're free for you to access if you're a member, and you can have a little look at those on there as well. Really good information in those as well. So thank you for attending. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Tom, in the background. That's great. And hope you all have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, and we'll speak to you soon.